Have you ever dreamed about owning a cabin in the mountains, or maybe a beach house by the ocean, or maybe just to escape to a warmer climate? For many people approaching retirement, purchasing a second home feels like the reward they have worked for decades, and it's a payoff to all of that hard work. But buying a second home may be one of the best decisions you'll ever make, or it could be an expensive nightmare. Today, we're going to walk through the pros and cons, hidden costs, even dive into some considerations as far as your money, as well as lifestyle benefits, so that you can really ask the critical questions that you need to answer before you sign on the dotted line. A second home can create wonderful memories and even become part of your retirement plan, but it can also derail your financial future if you don't think it through. If you're considering purchasing a second home or a vacation home or even a retirement property, I really encourage you to take note and re-listen to this episode because it really could help you to make a better choice. And always, before you make any major financial choice, please consult with a financial professional who is a fiduciary, meaning they're acting in your best interest to make sure you make the best decision. Hi, I'm Annette Bau, founder of The Millionaire Insider and host of the Millionaire Insider podcast, formerly the Wealth Inside and Out podcast. For over 36 years, I have been helping individuals, pre-retirees, and retirees create coordinated retirement plans designed to provide clarity, confidence, and financial security. And today we're diving into such a critical topic, and it's a question I get all the time. Annette, should I purchase a second home? And of course, the answer is it depends, right? Like most financial decisions, purchasing a second home is not just about the property itself. It's about the lifestyle you want, your retirement goals, taxes. You always have to look at taxes, cash flow, and whether the purchase is going to support the life you want to create. So we're going to look at some of the benefits of owning a second home, some of the hidden costs and risks people often miss, as well as questions you must answer before buying. Now, if you need personalized guidance, meaning you don't have a financial plan or a retirement plan, I encourage you to go to themillionaireinsider.com/5Q. Those questions are going to give you insight on what your next best step is. So again, I encourage you to access it at themillionaireinsider.com/5Q. Most people need greater clarity in their goals, where they are and what they want to achieve, confidence in knowing their plan's going to work, as well as financial security. So again, you can access these questions at themillionaireinsider.com/5Q. For today's show notes, you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/173. The Millionaire Insider copyrights all materials and intellectual property. This information is for educational purposes only. It's not intended to replace the advice of any advisor or specialist or to provide any investment, financial, tax, retirement, planning, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified professional, a fiduciary, before making any major financial changes. So let's talk, first of all, about some of the benefits of buying a second home. And it's sort of funny because I prepared for this episode while I was at my actually third home, and I would not recommend a third home. I'm just saying. Now, our third home is a condo overlooking the ocean, and we do lease it out because I've only been down there 2 times in the last 4 years. That said, I think it's just another level of complexity. I really wanted a condo. I did not want a house overlooking the ocean. And it's been a good decision for us. Has it been the best financial decision for us? No. But sometimes that's not what it's about. And so again, you have to look at that and make sure that you're looking at the big picture. Many people obviously think of the financial reasons when they're considering a second home. Some of the biggest benefits are often more lifestyle related. You always dream of having a cabin in the mountains or a beach property, or maybe living on a golf community. Maybe it's a lake home, or it's even a retirement destination. The list can go on and on. But a second home allows you to spend more time in the places that bring you true joy. From a perspective of both our second home, which is in the mountains, and then our condo, both of them have done that. Now, our cabin in the mountains has been a lot more lucrative. At the same time, for me, it's priceless to just sit in my condo and look at the ocean. It's just great. It's just, I love it. Now, I don't like sand. In fact, that's probably the negative. And we're not even right on the beach because I have a real weird thing. I don't want to be right on the beach. I wanted to be back a little bit. I don't know. It just makes me feel safer. But the reality of it is that no matter where you are, we always walk on the beach. You have sand everywhere. So, you just have to think those things through. It's really nice because my younger son enjoys going down there, and we try to go down there whenever he finishes one of his semesters at school. So that's been really nice to be able to do that. It's just the last couple of years we've not been able to. It's just one of the things that, again, you have to take into account. The one thing I don't want you ever to forget is that money is simply a tool to help you create a life you love. And that, in my opinion, is the most important aspect you can leave with. Many retirees discovered that they value experience and memories more than accumulating additional assets. And once you get to a certain point, that magical number, then, it's like, okay, so what are you going to do with another $1 million, right? Maybe help more people, maybe do more good. I get all that. But at the same time, from a perspective of your quality of life, it's not going to change it. A second home can provide that. And the key is to really determine why you're buying it. So let's look at a couple other benefits. Many people purchase a second home long before retirement. The nice thing is it can help you lock in lower prices. However, what we've seen in the United States over the last, 6-7 years has been anything but low prices. And, when you look at how high it is now, really does make you pause. It allows you to become familiar with the area. Now, I personally would recommend that before you go purchase something, you really make sure that's the area you want to be in. It can allow you to build strong relationships. But again, you got to make sure that you're compatible with where you're buying. One of the things that's really interesting about our second property is it's on a country club. And it's funny because one of my best friend's husband was a golf pro and he's a very good golfer. And so they get to experience a lot. They're like, we would never live on a country club because there's just too much focus on drinking. And I thought it was really interesting because there is. That's, everyone's always drinking. And so it's something you have to take into account. Another major benefit is it allows you to transition gradually into retirement. Instead of making a major move when you retire, you already are going to have roots when you do. So another huge plus. Another benefit are family memories. A second home often brings a gathering place. Your kids come to visit. If you have grandkids, they may come to visit. Holidays can become traditions. Many families create decades of memories, and we have. We almost always go up to our cabin right after Christmas. And then we spend New Year's up there. And sometimes we have our kids up there on New Year's, sometimes we don't, but they do come up. And if there's snow, we typically go skiing. Sometimes the emotional return is so much greater than the financial return. Like we were just up there over Memorial Day and we had so much fun. We were golfing. We even went for a hike. I was able to go for a hike, which is a major breakthrough for me with my broken leg. We had so much fun. It was just, great. We went to dinner a couple times at the country club and we had a really good time. Everyone had fun. And those are memories that I cherish. Now, my brother, I was just talking with him. He lives in the Midwest and they're considering buying a lake property. And one of the things he said he's going to do is he's going to have provisions in his trust that after he dies, the kids have to get together at least once a year at this lake property or they don't get their inheritance. Now, I thought that was kind of funny. I'm like, oh, I like that. Because it kind of forces your kids to still have a relationship. Anyway, the nice thing about having money is you get to make those choices, as crazy as they may sound. Another benefit is potential rental income. Some people rent out their second home and it can be a huge benefit because it can offset ownership costs, generate additional retirement income, and even cover taxes and maintenance. Now, you have to be really careful about if it's considered a second or third residence or it's an actual rental property. You got to look at it from a tax perspective and make sure that it makes sense. As I mentioned to you, we've had our condo, which is our third property for almost 10 years, and we rent it out just because we're rarely there. Most months it has been positive as far as earning money, and they send us checks randomly. But sometimes we've had to deposit checks in there. But right now, because of what's going on in the US economy, people are struggling. And when people start struggling, they are not taking vacations and they're not buying, second properties overlooking the ocean. As one of the realtors goes, the condo overlooking the ocean is not a necessity. And I thought that's very true. And so it's been very negative. And some people that have owned in our community, which has hurt all of us, have needed that rental income. And because they couldn't get it, they've had to sell. And it's caused the prices to drop because our condo was worth, I don't know, we probably had about a 50% increase. And now maybe it's a 25% increase. So it has dropped significantly. That's something you have to be aware of. So let's talk about some of the downsides and hidden costs. Sometimes people don't consider these things. And owning two homes means owning two sets of expenses or three, right? You got property taxes. They continue whether or not you have your property rented. And many retirees underestimate this expense. Taxes generally increase over time. Problem with our second home is our taxes are very high. It's comparable to a commercial building in Phoenix. The reason they're high is because we don't get to vote to elect officials. And so they have no incentive not to tax us. And so that's something that I didn't really find out until after we had the property, but something to be aware of. You have to have insurance, homeowners insurance, maybe vacation home coverage. For some people, flood insurance. You obviously have fire insurance and probably even an umbrella policy as far as for liability. Insurance costs and taxes have gone up dramatically. Another hidden cost is maintenance. The quote says, if you own it, it owns a piece of you. And I think that's so true. Every property has maintenance, repairs, cleaning. You've got the HVAC, the plumbing, washing machine, dryer, fridge repairs. And when it's out of the country, which are condos in Mexico, it's just crazy. Our washing machine, we've had issues with it and they finally got it fixed. So now it's working. But then we were just down there and our dishwasher wasn't working. And so we had to go 3 days without a dishwasher, which is fine. I mean, we don't have one up at our cabinet. It doesn't really bother me, but I was like, what a pain. Well, it turns out that the cleaning people had turned it off. So it just the water wasn't on. But those are the things that are just frustrating. If you have a house, you've got landscape, roof repair, painting. I kid you not, we walk on the beach and literally nonstop, there are always painters painting houses. Because why? When you're on the water, you do not want to own a house. That's all you'll be doing is maintenance because the sea air is so brutal on your exterior. The larger property, the bigger the expense. You got to factor that in. All right, another hidden cost are travel expenses. Even if you already own the property, you're still going to have to get there. You got gas, airfare, vehicle maintenance, travel time. I want to just give you an insight. With what's going on right now, supposedly we're hopefully settling the war in Iran. However, now it sounds like Congress is demanding that they're a part of that. So who knows what will happen there. But gas prices at our condo were $7 a gallon. It costs more for us to fill up our buggy than it does my car when I'm filling it up here. It's just crazy. Absolutely crazy. So you got to factor those things in. And then you got to look at the opportunity cost. This is something that many people miss. Every dollar that you invest in a different property could be funding your retirement, growing your investments, creating guaranteed income for your retirement, funding healthcare needs, or even long-term care needs. So the question isn't just, can I buy it? It's, what am I giving up to buy it? And as I mentioned, our property in Mexico has not been, from a financial perspective, a great investment. But for quite a few years, we would spend Thanksgiving down there, which was so fun. But then it's been hard for my youngest son because he's got finals and he's got coming up like the following week. So we haven't been able to. But again, it's something like that is not just about the money. And as I mentioned, we were just down there. We just returned yesterday. And I said to my husband, this probably hasn't been the best financial decision we have made. And he goes, yeah, but gosh, everything else has been so worth it. And he goes, once we get down here and we get things kind of in sync. It's amazing. And so it's true. It is. And it has been worth it. And I think if we did it again, we probably would do it again. All right. So let's look at 3 questions to ask before you buy. The key really is, how is this going to impact your retirement, right? So start with, do you have a retirement plan? That's got to come first, always. And then before you buy a house, are you going to have enough income to live on? And not what you think. This needs to be verified by a qualified financial advisor who is a fiduciary, that they are comfortable that you're going to have enough money. Are you accounting for inflation? What about healthcare? What about long-term care? What about taxes? Always create that plan first and make sure that it makes sense. And if you don't have a plan, I encourage you to take our quiz at themillionaireinsider.com/RRQ. That's our retirement readiness quiz. That will give you insight on where you are. And then if you do find that you need to create a plan or you're ready to, you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/5Q. But the next question is, how often are you going to use it? Many people, they just have this great plan. And I always look at it, so funny, up where our cabin is. Oh my gosh, it'll be on the market and it's like gone immediately. And people are up there and they're just so excited. And we meet them and they're, oh, we can't wait. And then they're up there for like a month or 2. And then all of a sudden they stop coming because it takes a lot of work. It is so much work to get ready to go somewhere. And even our cabin, we've got a few amenities where we are, and we've got, a nice country club. But if you want to go to a major store, it's a 20-minute drive. And so, it's work. And we typically bring our food up, a lot of the food from the valley, instead of going into town. You got to factor that in. And you got to look at how many weeks are you going to actually be there? And what about family members? And what are the rules for using it? One of the things that is so frustrating is one of our sons, him and his buddies will go skiing, and then they don't pick up after themselves. So finally what we did is just came up, if you guys are coming up, our cleaner's coming and cleaning it. So there's no question, because it's like, oh, we'll clean it. Yeah, right. It never happens. So again, you just got to be aware of that. And then you got to look as far as if renting a better option. Now for me, it's really not, because I like to sleep on the bed I want to sleep on. My neck, even though I travel with my pillow, it does impact me. And my diet, I have to eat so strict because I don't eat sugar. So it's just something I have to be really aware of. And when I just go to some other property, I never know what I'm going to get there. So you just got to look at what is the lifestyle you want to create and what is the long-term responsibility. Well, as I mentioned, we have probably at the height was up about 50% of what we paid for it. And now it's probably about 25%. We did get a really good deal, meaning we saved almost $75,000 because we paid cash. So that was huge. But if you look at our cabin, now granted, we've had it for 20 years, but we have 10x'd our money there. And so that has been a much better deal. But, things you got to just be aware of. As I mentioned, we get down there and the dishwasher's not working. And then I walk into our master bedroom and it smells like somebody threw up. I'm like, oh my God. So the cleaners come out and they clean. I'm like, okay, great. And then they leave and then it starts again. So we figured out it's in the closet. So we closed the closet off. They came back again. And this time they really did a deep clean. It was fine. But those are the hassles. Now, if we were using it regularly, we would not be renting it out. And most of the people that are down there, are almost all of them that live in our complex are Americans. The vast majority that go down regularly don't ever lease theirs out, and we wouldn't either. So again, you just got to look at that, because right now we do, because we just don't use it as much. And right now it doesn't make sense to sell. We considered selling, and then we decided, we like the option of having a property outside the United States. So again, you got to just look at what works for you. Right now, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, we would be made whole if we sold it, but we don't need to. And so, well, we're going to take it out of there and put it in the market. And the market is at such a high, and we already have so much money in the market. You got to have your assets somewhere. The third question is, can you afford it if the market drops? Markets go up and they go down, and real estate goes up and it goes down. A lot of times people don't think about what happens if your home value or your second home value decreases, or your investments decline and you have more expenses. One of the things that I see that's really interesting is, so where we purchased, they will let you buy with 35% down. And they have an actual very interesting model. They know that people will pay the 35%, so they get the 35%. People buy and then the market goes down. They can't rent it out. They can't sell it. And so they default and they get it back and they just rinse and repeat. Now, I'm not saying that's a great practice, but they've made a lot of money on it. Now, one of the things, the only reason I know that is because we paid cash and they couldn't close because they couldn't get the title. Rarely do people pay all in cash. So what they do is they just take the note and the bank still has the title. So that literally delayed us 4 to 6 weeks. And so that's where I learned all of that. And I thought, oh, what an interesting model. You've just got to be aware that if you're only putting a minimum amount down, you could have a risk. And then look at, will this property improve my life? One thing I will say is, yeah, maybe we've not made as much money on it, but it has provided peace of mind and just a sense of it's like flow, like calm. I mean, sitting there just looking at the ocean, it looks like diamonds out there floating around. It's just, to me, it's heaven. So I love that. But the ultimate decision really is, what is it that you want? And understanding that the purpose of money is more than accumulation. It's really about creating that life you love. It's about creating a life that's filled with passion, fulfillment, and experiences. And I will say, absolutely beyond a shadow of doubt, all of our properties have done that. What I want you to really think about when you are considering a second home is, what from a lifestyle perspective will it bring? What about memories? What about financial security? And look at those independently before you make a decision. Once you look at those, then you can confirm that it is going to support your overall financial plan. It's not going to cause problems with your retirement plan. The happiest retirees I've worked with in my 36 years are rarely the ones with a lot of stuff. They're the ones with confidence and clarity, and they know where they are, what they can spend, and what their future looks like. They make decisions from a place of confidence instead of emotion. And that, my friend, is critical, especially when it comes to a second home. So in conclusion, a second home can provide a lot of freedom, family memories, and even an exciting retirement. But it can also create unexpected expenses and financial strain if you purchase without a plan. So make sure before making any decision, you take the time to really evaluate your financial plan, your retirement income, your current spending, your future spending, taxes, healthcare needs, and long-term care goals to make sure that it will work for what you need. The goal simply isn't owning another property or saying you do, right? The goal is really creating a financially secure life you love. And when a second home fits within that vision, it's priceless. And it's going to be one of the most rewarding decisions you've made. So if you are ready for retirement and you want to create a plan, I encourage you to go to themillionaireinsider.com/5Q, answer a couple of questions. That's going to really help you to really get clear on where you are and what you need to do. All right. I want to thank you so much for joining me. I'm Annette Ba'u. All international copyrights are reserved. Bye for now.